Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. My name is Jonathan Dawson. Our churches will never be the same again. That's a fairly bold quote, and it comes from the mouth of Jaume Llenas, General Secretary of the Spanish Evangelical Alliance, in the light of next year's conference in Cape Town 2010, otherwise known as Lausanne III, the Global Evangelisation Conference, under the auspices of the movement which sprung out of the first meeting held back in 1974 in the Swiss town of Lausanne, which now gives the organisation its name. So why does Llenas make this claim? 5,000 Protestant leaders from 200 countries are expected at the conference, among whom will be a 25-strong Spanish delegation led by Llenas, the third largest European group attending the conference, in fact. And he believes the meeting will be strategic in the advance of the gospel worldwide. The first conference, as I say, was held back in Lausanne in 1974, and Llenas says of that it didn't just change the way we understand evangelism, but also the way we understand the role of the church. Those who bought into Lausanne's vision accepted that the mission of the church, quote, is not just to save souls, but includes a person's whole being, and therefore all their needs. Well, it's precisely this social aspect which concerns many other Christians who see the spectre of the social gospel lurking behind Lausanne. However, Llenas claims that evangelism took a leap forward in 1974 and the years following, and reached many hitherto unreached parts of the world, which is why he now thinks the Cape Town 2010 conference will not be an event, but because of it, our churches will never be the same again. Well, the motto of the interdenominational meeting is the whole gospel through the whole church to the whole world. These conferences are always great on mottos, and Llenas believes this reflects a historic opportunity to reach the whole world population with the message of Jesus. Quote, we can finish in one generation the task of reaching everybody, unquote, he says, with admirable, if optimistic, and perhaps rather far-fetched sentiment. Now, one of the reasons for choosing Cape Town as the host city for the conference was the suggestion by missionary pioneer William Carey, who apparently proposed the place, then part of the British Empire, of course, as a good location for a conference on world mission. The fact that the Christian church has grown so much in Africa in recent years is another factor. Well, there will be 5 main topics under discussion in Cape Town. How should we respond to religious fanaticism? Is the church the main obstacle for the advance of evangelism in the world? The celebration of the new face of the global church? The development of a robust theology of suffering and reconciliation? And the establishment of evangelistic priorities to further world mission? Well, regular readers of AC Press and listeners to this broadcast will know that I'm no fan of big conferences. They seem to be very strong on talk, but the problem is putting it into action afterwards. It takes up a huge amount of time and money to put together a conference like this, and is it really worth it? Well, let's look in a little more detail at the main topics under discussion. Responding to religious fanaticism or fundamentalism rather depends how you define fundamentalism, but undoubtedly that is an important issue, particularly for the persecuted church. But the second one is hugely controversial. Is the church the main obstacle for the advance of evangelism in the world? Well, if this is looking at liberal institutions and liberal churches, then there may be some truth in that. But in fact, the church, biblically understood, is not the main obstacle. It's the main instrument, in fact, the biblical instrument set up by Christ for the advance of evangelism in the world. So that's rather worrying that they're discussing that. The celebration of the new face of the global church reflects the fact that the church has grown in the two-thirds world hugely in recent years, and that therefore the proportion of Christians in places like Asia, Latin America and Africa is far greater than that in the West. The development of a robust theology of suffering and reconciliation again is rather ambiguous and quite Where that will go remains to be seen. And finally, the establishment of evangelistic priorities to further world mission sounds rather like going over old ground. But I don't want to dampen the ardour and enthusiasm of those who feel that Cape Town 2010 may have much to offer. Let's wait and see. Yenis is certainly right to see the Lausanne movement as a philosophy rather than merely a conference, and hopes the discussion of such potentially controversial topics will bear fruit in greater world evangelism, and surely we will say amen to that. The danger, of course, is that only that sector of world evangelicalism which signs up to the Lausanne philosophy will actually be present in Cape Town, and that the rest will remain disinterested, or worse, disenfranchised. And Yenis is certainly overstating it when he claims that these days there is not a church which doesn't have some kind of social conscience, and though they've never heard of Lausanne, the way they do church was born in 1974. Well, that rather ignores all that was going on before that date. But the conference is organising a global forum so that anyone can join in the debates on the central issues discussed in Cape Town. Each month an article related to one of them will be published, and the conference talks will be broadcast live on internet for others to follow them. So there's no excuse for not knowing what's going on, nor for not entering into the debate for those who wish to do so. We wait to see what Cape Town 2010 brings. Thank you for listening to Letter from England, broadcasting at emission.net. Goodbye.
Emisión.net